Hello, my name is Lynn Jarvis and welcome to my research proposal presentation for my Doctorate of Education Studies. My study looks at how students entering higher education via an enabling program or course perceive, experience and negotiate risk as they progress through their first period of study. My study will be conducted at the University of Tasmania with students studying in the University Preparation Program there, commonly referred to as UPP. An enabling program, sometimes called a bridging, preparatory or access course, is a mechanism by which students who have not previously met university entrance criteria can both prepare for and gain entry into university. Some students who do meet entry criteria also use these courses as a preparatory mechanism. The structure of such courses may vary, but typically they provide a combination of generic academic skills, prerequisite knowledge in certain disciplines, and an introductory experience which acclimatises students to academia. Courses such as UPP are now evident in one form or another in most Australian universities, and they represent a response to various widening participation agendas. One such agenda is driven by a desire to make higher education available to a broader range of participants and to break down the current divide in Australia based on socio-economic status and location. This divide basically says that the higher your socio-economic status and the closer you live to urban areas, the more likely you are to attend university. Alternatively, provision may also be driven by the economic agenda, which says that Australia needs a more educated workforce in order to successfully compete in the global knowledge economy. On a more local level, universities may also use such courses simply as a way of increasing enrolments. Students in enabling programs come from a wide variety of backgrounds and commonly occupy positions of disadvantage in some way or other. It may be that they belong to groups identified as underrepresented in higher education, those from low socio-economic backgrounds, students from regional and remote areas, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. Or they may be considered disadvantaged because they belong to groups that typically fare less well at university, including those with low entrance scores or lower levels of education in general, students from non-English speaking backgrounds, and students from refugee backgrounds. Whilst typically mature-aged, more and more younger students are also choosing enabling programs as their pathway into higher education, either having previously rejected education or being rejected by it. Higher education is framed in most contemporary societies as a passport to advancement and well-being. This is underpinned by research which shows that having a university education gives you more job choice, higher incomes, better health and better outcomes for your children. However, the reality is not everybody entering higher education has a positive outcome. Enabling courses typically have very high attrition rates, which a recent Office of Learning and Teaching research project documented and dissected, concluding that there was no one single determinant for this, rather that it was a result of a collection of causes and life circumstances. As a practitioner in this field and manager of both the University Preparation Program and the University of Tasmania's other pathway programs, I am privy to many student stories which demonstrate that entering higher education via an enabling program is not necessarily without risk. I've witnessed many students struggle with complex life circumstances, backgrounds that provide little preparation or support for university, fragmented educational experiences, health, work, finance and self-esteem issues, and unrealistic expectations. Unlike undergraduate students from similar backgrounds, enabling students do not even have a history of previous educational attainment to tell them that they belong or to stand them in good stead. Many students overcome these challenges and thrive, but a large number are unable to and withdraw, sometimes with serious consequences. As a relatively new phenomenon in the Australian higher education landscape, and often occupying a fringe position in universities, research into enabling education is still limited, meaning policymakers and practitioners in the field are making decisions on experience and conjecture rather than empirical research. The body of research that does exist is largely descriptive and also examines the experience of successful students. The journey of those who do not succeed has not yet been examined in depth. Research from other countries and spheres indicates that the study of risk can offer some insight into what enabling students are experiencing, particularly in terms of why and how they make decisions to study and how they negotiate the challenges which present themselves throughout their course of study. However, as yet, this has not been explored in relation to enabling education in the Australian context. The research questions are then, as outlined here. The overall focus of the study will be a general understanding of how risk impacts students entering higher education via an enabling program. More specifically, this will involve exploring how is risk perceived by students in a university enabling program? How do students negotiate risks in their first semester of study? What is the relationship between background, the learning experience and risk? And how can an understanding of risk contribute to practice and decision making within the enabling and higher education sectors? Given that there is little research directly on this topic itself, literature which can provide insight into background issues will be used instead. This includes literature exploring the nature and experience of undergraduate students who share similar characteristics to enabling program students. Literature that does exist in relation to the provision of enabling programs in Australia will also be examined. The small amount of literature that looks at risk and higher education in other countries and context will inform key concepts. Work from the UK in particular suggests that the risk of studying higher education is much greater for some students than others, particularly for students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. A similar suggestion has been made in the Australian context in relation to students from regional and remote backgrounds. The key theoretical perspectives used in this study is risk theory. Scholars and researchers have viewed risk in a variety of ways, but two of the main perspectives, and the ones most relevant to this study, can be examined by looking at this picture. Ulrich Beck proposed the idea we currently inhabit a risk society. Whilst on the one hand, risks, particularly environmental risks, now apply to us all, regardless of economic capacity, other risks have become more individualised as social structures break down. Whereas once upon a time, economic and social structures would have kept the fish in the small bowl, in today's world, the fish theoretically has the ability to leap out of its bowl into the bigger, presumably better one. In doing so, however, the fish encounters considerable risk, often without the resources to fully understand or manage those risks. Risk, therefore, according to Beck, becomes highly individualised. The socio-cultural perspective of risk, first highlighted in the works of the anthropologist Mary Douglas, points out that what is or is not a risk, however, is dependent on a range of cultural and social perspectives. While one society or individual may see this fish's leap as a recklessly dangerous act to be avoided, another might frame it as a rite of passage or an opportunity, or any number of states in between. To understand risk, it is important to see how risk is framed both by the individual and the society. How individuals perceive risk will be the focus of this study, and this includes making reference to how individuals negotiate those things conceptualised in our contemporary Western society as risky. In terms of looking at why the experience of enabling education might in fact be risky, according to our contemporary understanding of risk, two other theoretical perspectives will also be used. Bourdieu's concept of cultural capital may help understand why students perceive higher education as risky, or why they may face challenges within the higher education environment once they begin. Cultural capital refers to attributes, objects and qualifications belonging to the dominant class, which provides students with the tools to successfully manage and negotiate particular fields. Bourdieu saw higher education as dominated by the higher classes and less accessible because of a lack of cultural capital to those who did not belong to that class. Mesereau's theory of transformative learning, which sees learners fundamentally changed by many learning experience, will also be used to look at what happens to students as they progress through their studies, and whether the change described by Mesereau might contribute to their experience as being one of risk. A qualitative research approach will be used in this study. Qualitative research allows for the exploration of complex and nuanced perceptions and experiences at an individual level. By understanding risk through participants' own voices, the complexities and nuances of risk can thus be explored. Given the subjective nature of risk, an interpretivist or social constructionist paradigm has been adopted to underpin this qualitative framework. Interpretivism provides ways of establishing how knowledge is constructed. In interpretivism, it is understood that people develop meaning from their experiences and interactions with others, including the researcher, and that these meanings are multiple and varied. In line with this, data will be collected by semi-structured one-on-one interviews where participants are asked broad and open-ended questions which allow for the construction of their own meaning. Methodological decisions made in relation to this study are underpinned by a pilot undertaken at the beginning of this year. The main study will be conducted at 2 campuses of the University of Tasmania's UPP course. The University of Tasmania is Tasmania's only higher education provider, and it services a population that has some of the lowest levels of socioeconomic status and educational attainment in Australia. Students from the Hobart and Launceston campuses will be asked to participate in this study. Both these campuses serve a local urban population and surrounding regional areas. Both attract a large number of students from low socioeconomic populations and also a significant number of students from refugee backgrounds. It is hoped around 20 to 25 participants will be recruited for this study. Each participant will be asked to participate in 2 interviews, one at the start of their first period of study and one at the end of this first period of study. Students will be recruited by myself attending key UPP lectures in a unit undertaken by most beginning students. Recruitment will occur across 2 semesters to ensure enough participants can be recruited within a suitable time frame. Interviews will be recorded and transcribed for analysis according to the research questions. Given that I am undertaking this study part-time, it is anticipated the data collection phase will be completed by the middle of 2015 and the analysis and writing phase of the project completed by the end of 2016. Ethics approval will be required from both the University of Wollongong and the University of Tasmania. Given I am the manager of the UPP and oversee student academic progress and review processes, I operate from a position of considerable power. I will attempt to mitigate this by clearly establishing the purpose of my study and my role in it as a student. By ensuring participants are aware that volunteering in this study will have no effect, either positive or negative, on their outcomes, and by ensuring that I conduct interviews in a place and manner that do not highlight my position of power. Whilst this study is generally low risk, some students may leave the course in difficult circumstances, which may impact on their willingness to participate in final interviews. Alternatively, they may participate but relate circumstances that may upset them. This situation will be monitored through the study and information about appropriate counselling services provided to any student showing signs of distress. It is hoped that this research project will provide a fuller and more nuanced understanding of the experience of students in enabling programs, which in turn will help inform policy and delivery decisions in this field. This research will also provide significant insight into the complex notion of attrition and help place the seemingly high rates of attrition for enabling students into a context. This will be of particular value in environments where resources are scarce and required to be justified. It may assist in differentiating the enabling student from the broader undergraduate population to whom they may be compared. In addition, this research will contribute to a richer understanding of students who typically occupy disadvantaged frameworks within university settings. Whilst this deficit view of students is useful in identifying inequality and creating policies to address it, it also has a capacity to under-recognise the strengths of such students. This research has the potential to raise the status and profile of enabling students who do persist from disadvantaged to students with skills and attributes which position them as valuable assets to both the university and the world beyond. The research will document and validate the experience of students hitherto underrepresented in higher education literature in Australia and has the potential to add to the theoretical understanding of the enabling education experience and to risk and risk perception within an educational context in general. Lastly, it is expected that the research may contribute to broadening the higher education discourse by exploring the notion that education contains risk as well as opportunity. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and now I make myself available to any questions that anybody may have. Thank you.